Hello, Star Wars and unboxing fans. Welcome to another episode of Darth Tuba's Star Wars Unboxing Show. I'm your host, Darth Tuba, and today I got something a little bit different in mind. It had been suggested to me by my wife, Mrs. Darth Tuba, that instead of all the time just doing unboxings, that maybe once in a while I do perhaps a review on the occasional toys that I have in my collection that I don't unbox. And I think that now that I think about it, and I put that idea in my head, I said, you know what, that's not a bad idea. As you can see behind me, and in all my episodes, for the most part, I do tend to unbox almost everything that I get. However, there are quite a few pieces here and there that I opt for one reason or another not to unbox. And why would that be the case? Because all the time I've been talking about saving space, and toys are meant to be played with, and all of that. But I do understand the whole mint in box type of mentality as well. So there are some toys that I feel that either are of a bit of value, okay, or maybe I already own them outside of the box, so just wanted to keep something in the package. B, it could be that the packaging is really interesting, has unique value to it, some interesting thing that makes it kind of a conversation piece. C, it could also be the fact that maybe the pieces are on display in the box in a sense that makes it look really cool, and probably cooler than anything I could set up when it's loose out of the box. So for those reasons, I'm going to share with you today, this will actually be a stay boxing. Okay, we'll call it a stay boxing. And for people that some of my fans that watch, like Richard from Skywalking Through Neverland, this show is dedicated to you, because I think you're awesome. I think Jedi Tink, Sarah, you're awesome too. I think Skywalking Through Neverland is an awesome podcast, and everyone should be watching that or listening to that, and subscribing and following on YouTube. And I hope, Richard, that someday you do get to be the Rebel Spy on Star Tours. So, may it happen. Okay, so here's a couple of things. We're going to go starting with one of my older pieces. Okay, and we have this. Okay, this is I'm going to say not mint on card. I'm going to say, good condition or decent condition on card. Empire Strikes Back Bespin Security Guard. Okay, now there's a couple of things you should notice about this. Just even looking on, without a close-up, you'll see that it still has a price sticker on it. Obviously, it's hole punched. It is starting to show wear on the hole punch. I have it in a star case protector, okay, because it is also a little warped on the back, okay. But why do I have this? Well, I have a small collection of figures that are still in their packages. What I've done, and something that you might, as young collectors, might be interested in building up a collection, but don't have the funds to do so with a mint on card or AFA graded figures, you could consider buying slightly damaged figures, okay? They generally tend to go for a much more reasonable price. I think on average I've paid between $35 and $65 per figure for on-card damaged, on a damaged card, and I think that's a really nice way to kind of, if you're collecting for the love of collecting figures and for the nostalgia of collecting carded figures, that's a great way to do it. So also, you'll notice on this one in the close-ups, it's hard to see here, but the package is seriously yellowed. The blister pack is seriously yellowed, but it is kind of fun from a vintage standpoint. To the box art was really cool. It had what they call the racing stripe going all the way around. It had the neat photo art, the great Empire Strikes Back logo. Then on the back you can see the photos of collect all, in this case 45, because this is Empire Strikes Back. And you can see all the different figures. They also have some special offers for some mail away stands on the back. Okay, a Star Wars display arena. So that's just a nice kind of a vintage look at a nostalgic look at the vintage line. So I really enjoy that. I really like having a few of these. I don't have the entire collection. In fact, I don't even own any that are Star Wars. Most of mine are either Return of the Jedi or Power of the Force or later. So, which I'll show you. I'll show you a couple of those in a second. So I'm just going to put this guy over here. Okay. let's kind of move down the history here to Return of the Jedi. Okay. And again, you'll see this card, similar to what we just saw. It's got a ripped price tag on it. This is the Rancor Keeper. It has the same yellowing on the bubble on the inside here. The card's a little bit better in terms of not being as warped. There is a bit of a tear, or maybe not. Oh yeah, like up by the Star Wars logo, there's a bit of a tear. Okay, but it's still, for all intents and purposes, it is a vintage carded figure, and that's really nice. So it's a nice thing to have. It has the free mail-away Anakin Skywalker sticker on it, and it has the Collect All 79. So we're not even fully into the full final collection of the original vintage line. But again, it's really, really nice. Another thing you'll notice, and part of the reason that the price is a little less, is that these are a lot of the ancillary characters. They're not the main ones, although I do have a few of those as well. So that's the Rancor Keeper. Let's move on in the timeline to what can sometimes be the hardest to find, and this is the Power of the Force. And this is Romba, the Ewok. And the Power of the Force line was the line that came after Return of the Jedi. Included a coin. This does include the coin. You'll see that this one doesn't have as much wear and tear on it. And part of the reason for that is that this was an original, meaning this is one I purchased in the 80s, and I just never got around to opening it up. So it stayed stored in a pretty safe space, and it was a fantastic stroke of unintended genius that I kept it in the box and untouched. And it doesn't have as much yellowing on the card. It does have a nasty price sticker here, although I do love looking at the Toys R Us sale price of 97 cents. 97 cents. That's why if I could go back in time, I think that's what I would do. I would go back to like 1985, 86 when these were out, but they were going on sale, and I would just walk into a Toys R Us and I would just fill my cart with all those 97-cent sticker cards, and I would just take them back with me, because those, even the Power of the Force, this is when the Star Wars brand was waning, with the popularity was waning, and new things. Oops, almost knocked over my Death Star. New things like He-Man and G.I. Joe, smaller figures, and Transformers were kind of taking kids' interest away from Star Wars, and there were no new movies coming out. So it was interesting. But it does have it on the back. It does have the it talks about the coins at the bottom, and it does have the full Collect All 92, which was the final number of cards available. Okay, all right, it might have been like 93, because I do believe Yak Face was part of that, but that was only available in Europe. So there you go. That is the Power of the Force one. Probably my nicest figure that I have in the carded vintage line. Then we're going to move on to the Droid series. Okay, and here we have Uncle Gundy. Okay, who's a little short, kind-hearted character from the Droids cartoon series. Now, the thing about Droids, okay, for those who don't know, I'm sure most of you do if you're watching the show, but Droids was a Saturday morning cartoon. Remember, kids, back in the day, there were not hundreds of channels, okay? There was not YouTube, and there was not YouTube channels and things of that nature. Everything was done with basically 3 main networks and a few other, ancillary groups. And when you wanted to watch cartoons, you had basically 2 choices. You could watch some cartoons after school, say from 3 o'clock to around 5 o'clock, or you can watch Saturday morning cartoons, which are on all 3 networks, and usually from around 7 or 8 in the morning until about noon. And they were all different types of properties. So, of course, when Star Wars was kind of waning, Lucasfilm decided to try their hand at a Saturday morning cartoon. They didn't try. They kind of farmed it out to another company, whose name is escaping me. But so they had a line of figures and some vehicles and whatnot from the cartoon series. Well, the series itself, not so great. It kind of, fizzled after 1 year. There was also an Ewoks Saturday morning cartoon. It was kind of like the Lucasfilm Hour. There was droids and then Ewoks. And an Ewoks did last a 2nd season. But as far as the toys that were concerned, they only came out with 1 set, and they really didn't have a lot of popularity. But, of course, then on the aftermarket, they are highly collectible and highly sought after. So these are the things that if I told you if I paid between 35 and 65, these are the ones that are actually on the higher end, because even with damaged cards. Now, this card's not too bad, actually. Uncle Gundy, he fared pretty well. He's got a little bit of tearing on the pegs. Everywhere around the peg holes, they always have a lot of damage because they've been hanging on the pegs, and sometimes they've been hanging in people's houses on pegs. So it's of course a natural thing. And then of course you see here on the back you got the Collect All 12, of the Droid series, and some of the toys that are available. These things, fetch a pretty penny now on the secondary market. But now it's just a fun, nostalgic look at, what Star Wars was for us in the 80s. And when Return of the Jedi was done, a few years later, we got droids and Ewoks. So try watching the cartoons now. It's not easy. They're very campy, silly, like a lot of the 80s cartoons were, and they didn't get more serious until the 90s. So there you go. All right, so now we're going to go through some of the newer items. And there's a series of things that came out called Battle Packs. And Battle Packs were, for lack of a better term, Battle Packs are basically dioramas in a box. They're in just a displayed set. Now sometimes the figures in the Battle Packs were just lined up and just stood there. And I've actually opened up a couple of Battle Packs, but there are some that I don't want to open up, and this is one of them. This is called Training on the Falcon. Okay, and if you look, you see you got Luke with his lightsaber, you got C-3PO and R2, you got a couple of boxes on the side, boxes here, a couple of units, and then you have Obi-Wan with the training remote. Okay, and now it's a little weird that they both have lightsabers, because that's kind of strange. I don't think Obi-Wan ever had his up open, but nonetheless, it's a cool thing. And if you look closely too, you'll see that it has a really cool cardboard backdrop that sometimes you can as we've done in previous episodes, you can take them out and you can keep the backdrop, but this is just such a nice little unit. And the other thing is that all of these figures I have loose multiple times over. Okay, maybe not as many with the Obi-Wan without his brown robe, but I do have a couple of them. So it seems like, well, why do I want to take it out and just kind of display them kind of willy-nilly when it looks so nice in this package? It even has a side view, okay, and it's good. And the other thing too is that they do come up with some little tiny items like boxes, storage boxes and things that you can have as well. But from a display perspective, you really can't get much better than what they're doing here. So that's why I essentially don't mind keeping that one in the box. Okay, so there you go. So let's go to another one, a similar one. By the way, that one came out in 2008. Okay, this one, all right, we have the Birth of Darth Vader. Okay, now the Birth of Darth Vader, this one came out in 2010. Okay, so a lot of the battle packs I think were around 2007-8 through 2011-12, around that time. So this one includes, the box art is definitely, it's called the Legacy Collection. Both of them were. This is a later one, so it's in red. But you've got Vader on his like Frankenstein table. You got one of the droids. You got his helmet, and taped in the back there with his lightsaber. You have his cape in the back, and you have another medical droid. So it's pretty much the thing is that these battle packs, most of these figures were made available. Even the table was made available in previous versions. But this was such a cool setup. This was such a cool looking display that I felt like, well, you know what? Why take it out of the package? I mean, it's really good. It tells a good story. It's a monumental moment in the Star Wars lore. So at the end of the day, we said, you know what? Let's just keep it the way it is. And it's really cool. Even if you look closely, you can even see that the Vader has the red lenses on his eyes. So, they really did keep up the detail pretty well. And it even has this chest plate separate, so you can place the chest plate in. And as I said, it's a really cool thing. I ultimately would like to keep that in the package. Okay, so again, I'll get some more close-up shots of these when we're done. Okay, this one is actually, it's partially unboxed through no fault of my own. Give me 1 second here. Sorry for any sound effects coming. Okay. This is the Disturbance at Lars Homestead. Okay, now this one, I will be honest, there's a chance that I might eventually end up taking this out of the box, only because it's already starting. All right. I don't believe this was purchased brand new. I think I purchased it with a used price because I think it might have fallen off the shelf and landed on its corner, and this plastic's really flimsy. Okay, but the other thing that's nice about this is that, again, tells a story. And Peru, Owen, I'm glad it's pre-charred remains, not post-charred remains. You got your sand trooper. You got what looks like one of those, I guess those Mastiff beasts that the Sand People had in Attack of the Clones. And then, of course, you got a moisture evaporator. But the really cool thing about this is you have a Lars Homestead hut and a little base piece. They're plastic. They're not just folded together cardboard. So that's a really, really cool thing. And I think that this, gives you a lot of options, a lot of play options if you want to go in to it and open it up and use it. I think of all the pieces, this one makes the most sense to maybe open. But for right now, it serves me well in a box thing. But you never know. If the day comes that I do decide to open it fully, I will definitely video it, and you can see it on on my channel. All right, so that's the Owen and Baru Lars Disturbance at Lars Homestead, and it was a Toys R Us exclusive. Okay, this last one I'm going to show you today is my absolute 100% favorite of my battle packs and things of that nature, and it's one I don't want to open up, and you'll see why in a minute. Here we have the Death Star briefing room. Okay, now the Death Star briefing room is a very pivotal scene in Episode 4, New Hope, where you have Darth Vader, you have Grand Moff Tarkin, and then you have several of the other Imperial officers, like you have Wolof Yularen, Colonel Yularen, Officer Cass, Chief Bast, General Tag, Admiral Amati. Okay, now this is just so cool on so many levels because A, it's got set up like again a cardboard table. It's all set up nice and neat, and why would you take these out? I mean, let's face it, most of these characters are only in this scene, so it's not as though unless you're having a vivid imagination, you want to really take out Admiral Yularen so he can have, or I should say, Colonel Yularen, because Admiral Yularen is that character from the Clone Wars, and let's face it. They made a really cool. They made a cool character out of him. I kind of feel bad, like he was, and they brought him back for Rebels. They had a brief stint in Rebels, so that's kind of cool. But so if you want to, you can take it out. But it's just such a nice piece. It's just such a nice setup, and you can see everybody clearly on the front, sides. All right, and again, I have enough Vaders. I have enough of them. Most of these figures I have other versions of. So that is an example of those are some of the reasons that I don't take things out of the boxes. Now, I've said before, times can change, things can happen, who knows. It's always possible that something can happen where I say, well, you know what, maybe I will unbox it. We'll see what happens. Okay, but for the moment, these are all, I fully intend to keep all of these things in their boxes, and not for, and by the way, in terms of, some people say, well, do you ever think about selling your stuff? And I said, someday I will, or someday my next of kin will. All right, it's all gonna go to some place, or maybe get donated to a museum, or who knows. But this is not an investment in money. This is an investment in fun and hobby, like collecting anything. And as a result, I'm not really interested in trying to make a profit on this. I know some people do that, and I don't have an issue with that. That's your thing. But this stuff just brings like a nostalgic, brings me back to the time in the movies and all the different scenes. And as I said, I could never display them any better than what they are here. So and they're not too big. I mean, this Lars Homestead notwithstanding, they don't take up too much room, so we can stack them on top of each other, and you got a lot of different dioramas. Now, I know of a lot of people that get into building dioramas, and sometimes they buy these and take them out, use the figures, and make an actual real-looking, well-lit diorama, and that's an awesome thing. That's not something I think I have the time, nor the interest, nor the talent, honestly, to do, or the patience. So I don't think that'll happen with me. But nonetheless, these are things I like keeping in the box. Every now and then they are a little dusty, so every now and then I take a damp cloth and I just kind of clean them off, make sure that they stay as pristine as I can make them. and and so maybe the time will come where we will do a little bit of unboxings. But for the moment, these will stay boxed. Okay, and that'll do it for this episode of Darth Tuba's, I guess today is Stay Boxing. We will get back into unboxings. I am still working on the Ultimate Collector Series Millennium Falcon. It is taking me a lot longer than I thought it would, and there's a lot else going on in the Darth Tuba's life, so we have a lot to, we'll get to it. It's happening. It's going to happen soon. I am about 3/4 of the way done with it, so you can expect a video too. It's going to take me a while to edit it down too, because there's a lot of editing that has to happen. So with that, be sure to check out all my other videos on YouTube. Like, subscribe, share, hit the notification button, and check me out on Instagram and Twitter at Darth Tuba, and also Darth Tuba Star Wars unboxing page on Facebook. And you can email me, darthtuba77@gmail.com, or put comments down below if you have any questions. Okay, so thank you so much, and may the Force be with you.